disruptive.
America that I fought.
Weird thing to happen. Hello, one and all. Welcome to this edition of Kitz Corner. It's been a fantastic day so far. So we got to take a second to mention about Bill Gates, the supervillain in a sweater vest who tries to act dorky, but is actually the megalomaniac worst person on planet Earth. And because of the fact that he uses the philanthropy term to counteract his evilness by saying he's doing good-hearted services, is even more disgusting. It's even more disgusting when you look into the services that he's providing, whether it comes to his scams in the tech industry that made him this entrepreneur billionaire that people suppose he is, to him being the medical researcher that brought us vaccines, even though he has no background in medicine, he has no background in medical sciences whatsoever. He just owns the patents to the vaccine, which that's all it takes to be a doctor at this point. And now, Bill Gates is also the world's biggest farmer. I kid you not. Bill Gates, a tech billionaire who scammed the world everywhere else, is a farmer, apparently, according to his latest new trends in buying up farmland. This is from The Guardian, and it says Bill Gates is the biggest private owner of farmland in the United States. Why? Gates has been buying land like it's going out of style. He now owns more farmland than my entire Native American nation. That's an article from 2021. Now, why exactly a tech billionaire would want to buy this much farmland? Did he had some sort of epiphany, decide, hey, I want to try some other hobby. I want to get into, agriculture. I want to get my hands dirty for once instead of actually just laughing behind closed doors. Or maybe there's something more sinister to this. And the more you read into Bill Gates, the more sinister this goofy, nerdy, sweater vest monkey is really just a psychotic supervillain to the world. Because here he is at an economic panel in Washington, D.C., discussing how cows, after he just bought all his farmland, cows are the problem to climate change. And we've heard this before. I thought it was absolutely nuts. And this is where I started to question the idea of climate change. Not the fact that whether it exists or not. I'm saying that Bill Gates, Al Gore, Greta Thunberg, all these, megalomaniacs that are touring around the globe and speaking in a bunch of forums aren't exactly the solution. And if we really cared about the environment, if we really cared about nature, we should be talking to people that are in one with nature, like farmers, like agriculturalists, like naturalists, like people in sciences that actually study the effects of nature. Not someone like him, not someone like Greta Thunberg, not Al Gore. Because these buffoons are the worst when it comes to the environment. They're actually the worst when it comes to protecting the planet and providing us clean air and clean oxygen and clean land and water to survive. They're the worst for it. And you're going to see why in a second, but take a look at this.
A large part of the carbon we have in the atmosphere now is caused by the electricity grid, which is about 25% or so.
Exactly.
So 24%, it comes from agriculture and forestry. Why is that causing such a big increase in carbon?
Cows and other grass-eating species have a digestion system that emits methane. And methane is a very powerful greenhouse gas. And so cows alone account for about 6% of global emissions.
So he's saying cow shit, cow poop, that most farmers use as fertilizer when it comes to agriculture. A lot of animal shit turns into fertilizer. That's just how it works. And a lot of that, poop does have nutrients that is extra from the body that's being recycled back into the earth, which is the most natural process imaginable, accounts for apparently 6% of global emissions. 6%. The hilarious part about that is he's complaining about cow shit at 6%. Meanwhile, he's the world's richest billionaire, or at least in the top 3, traveling around on big private jets, emitting the most highly toxic emissions, not just methane, but also nitrogen and other chemicals into the air, and he's complaining about cow poop. Cow poop is the worst for climate change, according to a jet flyer. And surprisingly, they don't mention that statistic, how much emissions that private jets created, or the military-industrial complex creates, because they are the world's polluters when it comes to eviscerating against the environment. None of that ever gets mentioned, but cow shit, the most natural fertilizer you can get, just plain shit, is accounted for 6%, only 6%. Which is why he's going to tell you that cows are the problem after he bought all this agricultural land.
And so we need to change cows, just cows alone.
How are we going to do that?
Well, actually, of all the categories, the one that has gone better than I would have expected 5 years ago is this work to make what's called artificial meat. And so you have people like Impossible or Beyond Meat, both of which I invested in.
You eat it as well, or do you like it?
Absolutely.
You do. Okay.
You can go to Burger King and buy the Impossible Burger.
All right. Is it healthier for you, or just healthier for the atmosphere?
It's slightly healthier for you in terms of less cholesterol. It's, of course, dramatic reduction in...
That's a convincing argument. It's slightly healthier for you. You realize that natural meat is being replaced by synthetics. These are chemicals. Chemicals that are used to make tires. Chemicals that are used in mass manufacturing, being injected inside of you. Those are toxins. Those are toxins into your body that's going to screw up your digestive system. That's going to make you sicker and iller, which is good for him because he also invests in vaccines. So it's a win-win-win situation for Bill Gates, and it's a big giant middle finger for everybody, including agriculturalists and farmers who have spent generations providing crop and food to everyday people that are now being suffered under this idiot who's saying that your lifestyle, your occupation, the most natural occupation, the most eco-conscious people on the planet are the worst for the planet. And how we need to replace organic, natural livestock with synthetics. It's actually worse for you. And trust me, I have tried one of those Impossible Beyond Beef things. I think it was A&W at one point. It was not good. You can definitely tell it's not meat. And the fact that they were trying to pull it out and try to, pass it off to people. Now, I don't think fast foods even carry it anymore because they bought all this Impossible Beef. No one's going to eat it. No one's going to eat it. And if you're really concerned about, if you want to be a vegetarian or vegan, there are other methods like black bean burgers. I've seen people create that. I've tried one of those. Those are actually pretty delicious. There's other means than synthetic chemicals to reproduce meat. It just seems way too far.
In methane emissions, animal cruelty, manure management, and the pressure that meat consumption puts on land use. The main reason why we need to increase the agricultural output over the rest of this century is not the population increase. It's that as countries get richer, they eat more meat, and meat is a very inefficient way of creating calories.
So let's replace that land with giant chemical plants to inject people with fake meat. Again, there's a reason why he bought all this farmland. It's not for good. It's not because he had a change of heart and trying a different hobby. It's because he is a psychopath. He is the world's greatest supervillain, and he just dominated over another aspect of your life. So that the food that you're eating is going to make you sicker and weaker, but then it's okay because he's going to sell you the vaccines that are very safe and effective and inject you with poisons that will make it even worse for you while he dominates as the global kingpin. And that goes into this. This is a video we showed way beforehand, but this is him actually on a farm. This is Bill Gates actually doing a stunt video posing as a farmer, and this is what he plans to do with that livestock. After all that farmland they bought, after concerning for cows and how we need to change them, watch how he's going to change the agricultural system for the better.
Well, the Gates Foundation has partnered with DFID on a great number of things, and among those are work we do together on livestock, helping animals survive either by having vaccines or better genetics, helping them be more productive. It's making a big difference. I was down in Ethiopia seeing how chickens are out there laying more eggs, getting more nutrition, and even some small savings into the household. So Edinburgh happens to be where a lot of the world's best work on this is done, and that's why DFID and the Gates Foundation are funding scientists here.
That's apparently how he's going to be a great farmer, by injecting livestock with harmful chemicals. But it's okay, because apparently they're more productive. They're messing up they're doing DNA changes to natural livestock, which then gets processed into food, which is going to be served on your table, and you're going to eat those chemical inbounds into your body instead of natural, organic, natural foods. It's crazy. It's crazy. It's so crazy that this farmer here, who I believe is from Scotland, I'm just judging on the accent of his, this actual dairy farmer from Scotland is going to educate Bill Gates and his followers that are throwing themselves into the fake meat conglomeracy, is going to educate why farmers are actually a great resource to the planet, and how the natural process of livestock and agriculture and plants are beneficial to the planet as a whole, which I thought that was common ground. Trees provide oxygen when it sucks in CO2. That's called photosynthesis. That's something I learned in grade school. Why are we not conducting planting more trees? Why isn't that an option on the table when it comes to combating climate change? Plant more trees, invest more into agriculture, invest more into planting more crops. That would actually take away some of that carbon and produce oxygen, which would be beneficial for everybody. But they're not doing that. So here's what this guy has to say.
The biggest lie in the world right now is that cows are killing the planet. At the core of that lie is how methane is calculated, and in the next few minutes
I'm pretty sure that's Scotland. Pretty sure that's a Scottish, or maybe it's Ireland. I don't know. I sometimes get lost in these accents. They all sound like Alan Rickman to me. They all sound like Professor Snape at one point. And I'm not saying that in disrespect. I'm just saying that it sometimes gets confusing. It's like when you're trying to defer an American accent to a Canadian accent. Unless you say A and a boots, then who's the wiser? But he's somewhere in Europe. That's how I know.
I'm going to take you through the full carbon cycle for my dairy cows, from the air and back to the air. All the carbon that enters my dairy cows starts in the air, and I have organised this fog as a nice visual representation of that carbon. Let's take 10 carbon atoms from the air and follow their journey through one of my dairy cows. The grass in my field uses photosynthesis. That's a hard word to say. Photosynthesis. Grass uses photosynthesis to pull carbon out of the air and store it as energy in the form of carbohydrates and proteins. So when my cows come in here in a few weeks to graze this field, they will eat the grass and they will take up the carbon. Sorry if I'm explaining this like you're stupid, but none of the public question any of this stuff. One of the 10 carbon atoms will leave as meat and milk.
I love that. I'm sorry if making this sound like you're stupid, but this is basic science. It's amazing. It's amazing that people forgot basic science, basic biology. You know, go back to grade school, learn about photosynthesis, and then come back to this conversation about cows being the problem to climate change. That organic, natural food being being raised on a farm. Farmland is apparently killing the planet. Meanwhile, we have private jet setters that are going from country to country to country, creating massive warfare around the world, and telling you what the evils of climate change are. Just what a great scheme this all is.
Which is then consumed as food by us humans, and we emit the carbon as respiration. Another 2 of the carbon atoms are emitted as respiration by the cow, also not counted as an emission. The remaining 7 carbon atoms are digested in the rumen of the cow by bacteria. The bacteria inside the cow's rumen takes the remaining 7 carbon atoms and converts them to methane through the bacteria's version of respiration. So respiration from the human, not counted as an emission. Respiration from the cow, not counted as an emission. Respiration from the rumen, counted as an emission. But here's the thing, no matter how the carbon leaves the cow, it has all started in the same place, which is the air. This next bit is where climate scientists like to gaslight us farmers and say that methane is not the same as CO2. So let's continue to track our 7 carbon atoms which have left our cow as methane. They have entered the atmosphere again, and them 7 methane atoms have 96 times the global warming potential of 7 carbon atoms. However, over the next 12 years, them 7 methane molecules that entered the atmosphere will break down into CO2 and water, completing our cycle. What this means is, if you have a stable number of animals, like this farm has for the last 12 years, as you emit the 7 methane molecules, 7 more that you emitted a decade earlier have just broken down back to carbon to be reabsorbed by the grass. So the net effect of the methane molecules emitted by my cows on global warming is 0. Factually, 0. And yet, in all the carbon calculations, them methane molecules are accounting for over 70% of my farm's emissions.
That's awesome. That was like an episode of Bill Nye the Science Guy. If he did an episode on farmland and actual scientific, natural process of photosynthesis, which is actually, it proves negative. It proves that there is a net zero carbon emission. And it also relates to, we did a report, showed a report from NASA. I wish I had it on me right now, but we showed a report from NASA that proved, NASA scientists proved that the amount of carbon in the air was actually beneficial and caused the Earth to have a greening process, meaning that there was more vegetation on the ground. There was more greening effect. The coral reefs are actually getting better and more beautiful with the amount of carbon that's in the air, because carbon is the natural process to feed and vegetate the earth. It goes into the soil and naturally regurgitates and provides us oxygen. That's truly what it means to be net zero. But yet here we are taxing people of all walks of life to then put that into mechanical systems, put it into synthetic foods, put that into mechanical systems that are going to capture the carbon, but doesn't actually provide anything to people. Like, I hear it all the time. I hear so many, fossil fuel companies that are now investing in carbon capture technology. I don't know what that is, but it's not going to provide anything. It's going to just suck the air out like a vacuum and do nothing. It's not going to provide oxygen the same way plants do. So what I always say, the best way we could do for the environment and for us as a species is plant more trees, do more vegetation, and actually assist farming. Not take it away, not demonize them, which is why all these protests are sparking, and they should, because farming is such a vital resource to any society, any civilization, is based around one of the oldest professions on the face of the earth. Not demonize those people, but actually invest into them. Invest their time, energy into understanding nature and being one with nature. That's what these farmers are doing. Because this guy obviously knows what he's talking about. This guy obviously knows the cycle of what he is doing because he's a farmer. He interacts with nature on a daily basis. Bill Gates has no idea. Bill Gates goes on private jets, he talks in big rooms, and he uses eloquent words to sound like the smart vitriol against for agricultural, but he does not know jack shit when it comes to farming. He doesn't know anything about photosynthesis, livestock. He doesn't know how the carbon is being emitted. He's just making up random numbers. And what this guy proved is that number, that 6% that's causing global emissions, is a false number. It's a false statistic because if you look at the actual process, it turns out it's a net zero effect. Because all that carbon gets sucked in the ground. All that carbon gets absorbed through the vegetation, through the natural process of photosynthesis, and provides us with oxygen. And considering they're wiping out more trees and wiping out more, all this through, again, the jet-setting class, the private elites, the military-industrial complex, which are the biggest polluters of mankind, that's not being addressed. It goes to show you the thing is a scam. And like I said, I'm not here to debate whether climate change is real or not. I'm just saying that Bill Gates, Al Gore, Greta Thunberg, all these, patriots of the environment are actually frauds. And the real environmentalist was that guy, an actual farmer who is actually in touch with nature. So much so that he has to educate people like 3-year-olds about the process of photosynthesis, which is actually how we benefit from, the amount of carbon we have.